He's not who he says he is. Maid's daughter warned in Chinese. Billionaire woman's face went pale. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It was a normal afternoon in the lavish mansion of the billionaire, Lily Hartman. The sprawling estate sat atop a hill overlooking the city, with sweeping views of downtown Los Angeles. The air was filled with the scent of fresh flowers, and the sun cast a golden glow over the perfectly manicured lawns. Inside, the atmosphere was just as grand. Chandeliers sparkled above, reflecting off marble floors polished to perfection. This was a world where wealth and power reigned supreme, and everyone knew their place. Lily Hartman, a woman of immense wealth, was the queen of this world. She had built an empire from the ground up, her name known in every corner of the business world. Her sharp eyes and quick wit made her a force to be reckoned with. But there was one thing she never fully understood: the people who worked for her. To her, they were invisible, just cogs in a machine that kept her life running smoothly. Among them was Maria, a woman who had worked as a housekeeper in Lily's home for years. Maria was a quiet, hard-working woman who never drew attention to herself. She had a daughter, Sophie, who was often seen around the estate, playing in the gardens or helping her mother with small tasks. Sophie was just a child, but she had a sharp mind and an even sharper instinct. She could sense things that others overlooked, and she noticed things that would make most people pause. On this particular day, Sophie was sitting quietly in the corner of the grand dining room, her eyes scanning the room as Lily entertained a group of high-powered business executives. The conversation was lively, filled with talk of mergers, acquisitions, and new investments. The men around the table spoke with a tone of superiority, their laughter filling the room as they discussed business deals worth millions. Sophie sat in the corner, her small hands folded in her lap, her mind far away from the grown-up world that surrounded her. She wasn't supposed to be there, of course. She had been instructed by her mother to stay out of sight, to remain as invisible as possible. But Sophie had always been different. She noticed the smallest details, the things that others missed. As the meeting continued, Sophie's attention was drawn to a quiet conversation happening between Lily and one of the executives. They were discussing a recent business venture, one that Lily had been very secretive about. Sophie could hear snippets of their conversation, but there was something strange about the way they spoke. Their voices lowered as if they didn't want anyone to overhear. Something about it didn't sit right with her. As she listened, her mind began to piece together the fragments of conversation she had overheard. She realized that there was something off about this deal, something that no one else in the room seemed to notice. Her heart raced as she considered the possibility of what they were talking about. Her instincts told her that this was important, that she had uncovered something that could change everything. But she wasn't sure if anyone would believe her. She was just a little girl, after all. No one would listen to her. Sophie glanced over at her mother, who was quietly cleaning the room, her face set in a mask of professionalism. Maria never spoke out of turn, never questioned her employer. But Sophie had always been different. She had always been curious, always wanted to know more. As the conversation between Lily and the executive grew more heated, Sophie knew she had to do something. She couldn't just sit there and stay quiet. She had to warn someone. Her heart pounding in her chest, Sophie stood up and made her way to the other side of the room, where Lily and the executive were sitting. She had no plan, no idea what she was going to say, but she knew one thing: she had to act. Without thinking, she walked right up to Lily and, in a clear, steady voice, said, "Don't sign it." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her, their eyes wide with shock. Lily's face went pale as she stared at the young girl who had interrupted the meeting. Sophie could feel the weight of every gaze on her, but she stood her ground. She didn't back down. "What did you just say?" Lily demanded, her voice trembling with disbelief. Sophie took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "Don't sign the contract. It's a fake." Lily's eyes widened in shock. The room was still, the air thick with tension. No one knew what to say, and for a moment, it felt as though time had stopped. Sophie had no idea how she knew, but she was certain of one thing. She had just uncovered a dangerous secret that no one else had noticed. The executive who had been talking to Lily now looked uneasy, his eyes flicking nervously between Sophie and Lily. The room was filled with an uncomfortable silence as everyone processed what had just happened. Lily stared at Sophie for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, slowly, she stood up from the table and motioned for the executive to leave. "We'll talk about this later," she said, her voice cold. Sophie watched as the men filed out of the room, their faces a mix of confusion and frustration. She had no idea what would happen next, but she knew one thing. She had just changed everything. The room was still as the last of the guests left, their faces filled with confusion and disbelief. Sophie stood in the center of the grand dining room, her heart still racing from the tension of the moment. Lily Hartman, the powerful billionaire who had built her empire with an iron fist, was standing in front of her, her expression unreadable. Sophie had no idea what would happen next, but she knew she had just done something monumental. Her instincts had led her to speak up, to warn the woman who had never even noticed her before. Now, she was waiting for the inevitable response. Lily stood there for a moment, as if processing what had just happened. Sophie could see the wheels turning in her mind, and she braced herself for the worst. Finally, Lily spoke. "You're very bold, aren't you?" she said, her voice sharp but tinged with uncertainty. Sophie didn't flinch. "I'm just telling the truth," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Lily's eyes narrowed as she took a step closer to the young girl. "You think you know what's best for me?" she asked, her tone now more defensive. Sophie swallowed, but didn't back down. "I know what I heard, and I know what I saw." The billionaire's face remained frozen in a mask of suspicion, but Sophie could see a flicker of something. Was it fear? "Do you even understand what you've just done?" Lily asked, her voice quieter now, almost as if she was speaking to herself. Sophie simply nodded. She didn't need to understand the full extent of it. She knew that something was wrong, and that she had just given Lily the warning she needed. "I'm not going to let you ruin everything for me," Lily said, her voice low but firm. "This is my life, my legacy." Sophie was taken aback for a moment. She had always seen Lily as a woman who had everything, wealth, power, control, but now she was seeing something else. Vulnerability. The realization hit Sophie hard. She had never expected to find herself in this position, but here she was, standing in front of a woman who was at the top of the world, yet feeling utterly exposed. "I'm just trying to help," Sophie said softly, her voice trembling just slightly. Lily took a step back, her gaze still focused on the young girl. There was a long silence between them. For a moment, it felt as though the world had stopped turning. Then, slowly, Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out the contract that Sophie had warned her about. She looked at it for a long time, her fingers tracing the edges of the paper. "How did you know?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophie didn't answer right away. She didn't have to. The truth was in the room, hanging between them like a heavy cloud. After a long pause, Lily sighed, her shoulders slumping in resignation. "I can't believe I almost signed it," she muttered to herself, shaking her head. The weight of the moment settled over them both, the reality of what Sophie had just done slowly sinking in. Sophie had saved Lily from making a disastrous mistake. In that one, brief exchange, everything had changed. The dynamic between them would never be the same again. Sophie had stepped out of the shadows, and for the first time, Lily Hartman truly saw her, not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone with the power to change the course of her life. "I owe you one," Lily said, her voice softer now. Sophie didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had done what she had set out to do. She had spoken the truth, and it had made all the difference. As she turned to leave the room, Sophie couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. For the first time, she felt seen, not as the invisible girl who cleaned the mansion, but as someone who had made a difference. And that, she realized, was worth more than any amount of money or power. The next few days passed in a haze for Sophie. Her life, which had always been quiet and unnoticed, had suddenly been thrown into the spotlight. The mansion, which had once felt like a cold, distant place, now seemed different. Everywhere she went, people treated her with more respect, and there was a noticeable shift in how they looked at her. Even her mother, Maria, seemed to hold her in a different light. It was as if Sophie had become someone important. As the days went by, Lily Hartman, the billionaire who had once ignored her presence entirely, began seeking her out more. She would find Sophie in the garden or in the kitchen, and the conversations between them had started to change. Lily, once aloof and dismissive, was now asking Sophie for advice, seeking her opinion on various matters. At first, Sophie wasn't sure how to react. She had never been in a position to give advice to someone like Lily, someone who had everything: money, power, influence. But slowly, Sophie started to realize that Lily was genuinely listening to her. One evening, after dinner, Lily approached Sophie while she was reading a book in the quiet of the sitting room. "Sophie," she began, her voice soft, "I need your help with something." Sophie looked up, startled. "My help?" she repeated, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Yes," Lily said, nodding slowly. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I believe you might be the only one who can help me now." Sophie felt a flutter of nervousness in her chest. She had never expected Lily to turn to her like this. "What do you need?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling slightly. Lily sat down beside her, folding her hands in her lap. "There's a problem," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A problem that could cost me everything." Sophie waited, her curiosity piqued. "What kind of problem?" she asked, her heart racing. "It's my business," Lily said. "I've been trusting the wrong people. They've been lying to me, and I've been too blind to see it. I need someone I can trust, someone who won't just tell me what I want to hear." Sophie's mind raced. She had always known that Lily was a businesswoman, but this was the first time she had ever heard her speak with such vulnerability. Sophie felt a pang of sympathy for the woman who had always seemed so untouchable. "I can help you," Sophie said, her voice filled with determination. Lily looked at her, her eyes searching Sophie's face as if trying to read her thoughts. "You don't understand," Lily said softly. "This isn't just about business. This is about my legacy. Everything I've built could fall apart in an instant if I make the wrong move." Sophie nodded, feeling the weight of Lily's words. She had always believed that wealth and power could solve everything, but now she saw the cracks in that belief. Lily was just as vulnerable as anyone else, despite her wealth. "I understand," Sophie said quietly, "but you have to trust me. I know what I'm doing." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, but in that silence, Sophie knew that things had changed between them forever. Lily was no longer just the woman who owned the mansion and the business empire. She was someone who needed Sophie, someone who had finally recognized her worth. "All right," Lily said at last, her voice steady. "I'll trust you. Let's fix this together." Sophie couldn't help but smile. For the first time, she felt like she was truly seen, not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone with the power to change the course of events. And as she sat there with Lily, planning their next move, Sophie realized that this was just the beginning. The truth had set everything in motion, and now, together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Days passed in a blur as Sophie and Lily worked together to uncover the truth behind the business dealings that had nearly cost Lily everything. As the two women spent more time together, Sophie began to see a side of Lily that no one else had ever witnessed. Beneath the polished exterior of the billionaire was a woman who had built her empire on trust and hard work, only to be betrayed by those closest to her. It was a stark reminder that even the most powerful people in the world could be vulnerable. Sophie's role in all of this had grown from that of an observer to an essential player. The more she worked alongside Lily, the more Sophie realized how much her instincts were valued. Lily no longer dismissed her as the maid's daughter, but treated her as an equal, as a partner in the business. It was a transformation that Sophie had never imagined. One evening, as they pored over financial documents in the study, Lily turned to Sophie with a serious look on her face. "I can't do this alone," she said, her voice soft but filled with a quiet strength. Sophie looked up, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure if she had heard her correctly. Lily set down the papers in front of her and leaned back in her chair. "I've made mistakes," she admitted. "I've trusted the wrong people, and now, everything I've worked for is on the line. I need someone who can see what I can't. Someone who can point out the things that have been hidden from me." Sophie's breath caught in her throat. "You want me to help you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lily nodded. "Yes, Sophie. You've already proven that you can see things others don't. You saw through the deception when no one else did. I'm asking you to help me fix this. Sophie felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She had always been the one who helped her mother clean the mansion, who stayed out of sight and out of mind. But now, Lily was asking for her help, for her expertise. It was more than she had ever hoped for. I will, Sophie said, her voice filled with determination. We'll fix it together. Over the following weeks, Sophie and Lily worked tirelessly, piecing together the puzzle of Lily's financial empire. They uncovered secrets, tracked down missing information, and navigated a maze of lies and deceit. Sophie's keen eye and unwavering commitment to the truth became their greatest asset. Lily was no longer the untouchable billionaire. She was a woman fighting for her legacy, and Sophie was the one who had the power to help her save it. One late night, as they were wrapping up their work for the evening, Lily turned to Sophie with a look of gratitude in her eyes. I couldn't have done this without you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Sophie smiled, feeling a sense of pride she had never known. I'm just glad I could help. It wasn't about money or power. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about something much more important. The bond between two women who had come from very different worlds, but who had found a way to work together and make a difference. The next morning, Lily held a meeting with her board of directors. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with uncertainty. But this time, Lily was no longer the woman who had to rely on others to fight her battles. She was standing tall, empowered by the truth and the strength that Sophie had helped her rediscover. I know the mistakes I've made, Lily began, her voice steady and commanding. But I'm here today to set things right, and I will do whatever it takes to rebuild what was lost. As the meeting continued, Sophie sat quietly in the background, watching as Lily took charge of her future. It was a moment of triumph, not just for Lily, but for Sophie as well. She had proven to herself that she was more than just the maid's daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with, and her place in this world had just been forever changed. As the weeks passed, things continued to evolve in unexpected ways. Sophie and Lily's partnership deepened, and the more they worked together, the more they grew to trust each other. The challenges they faced seemed endless, but there was a sense of purpose in their work that neither of them had experienced before. Sophie's sharp mind and ability to notice the smallest details became a cornerstone for solving the problems that had nearly destroyed Lily's empire. Sophie no longer felt like an outsider in the grand mansion. She was beginning to see herself not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone who could stand alongside the powerful. The dynamic between her and Lily had shifted dramatically. Where once Lily had been the powerful figure in the room, Sophie was now an equal. One afternoon, as they sat together in the study, surrounded by files and documents, Lily turned to Sophie with a serious expression. We've come a long way, Lily said, her voice quieter than usual. But there's still so much to be done. I can't let everything I've worked for slip away. Sophie looked at her, sensing the weight of the situation. We'll fix it, she said, her voice calm, but filled with determination. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Lily smiled faintly, the first genuine smile Sophie had seen in weeks. I know, Lily said, and I can't thank you enough for that. It was a small moment, but to Sophie, it meant everything. She had spent her entire life feeling like an invisible part of the world, but now, for the first time, she felt seen, heard, and valued. The days turned into weeks, and together, they managed to unravel the web of deceit and corruption that had nearly brought Lily's empire to its knees. They confronted the people who had wronged them, exposed the lies, and brought justice to the situation. Through it all, Sophie remained steady, her instincts guiding them every step of the way. Lily, too, had changed. She was no longer the cold, distant businesswoman she had once been. She had learned the importance of trust, of being vulnerable, and of listening to those who truly cared about her. Finally, after months of hard work, the business was back on track. Lily's empire was saved, and it was stronger than ever. But it wasn't just the business that had been rebuilt. The bond between Lily and Sophie had grown into something more profound. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of the mansion, overlooking the city, Lily turned to Sophie. I can't believe how far we've come, she said, her voice soft. You've taught me so much. About trust, about loyalty, and about what really matters. Sophie smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I've learned a lot, too, she said. But it's not just about business. It's about the people we care about. The ones who stand by us when everything else falls apart. Lily nodded, her eyes meeting Sophie's with a look of deep understanding. You've given me something I never thought I needed, Lily said. You've given me a sense of perspective, and I will always be grateful for that. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city below, Sophie realized that this journey had changed her in ways she could never have imagined. She had found her voice, her strength, and her place in the world. And, more importantly, she had found a friend in Lily. The road ahead was uncertain, but Sophie knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, she was ready. Together, they had overcome the impossible, and now, they would face whatever challenges life threw at them with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. The months that followed were filled with a newfound sense of purpose and determination for both Sophie and Lily. Together, they had rebuilt the business empire, but now they were facing a new challenge, maintaining it. The weight of responsibility now rested heavily on both of their shoulders. Lily, once known for her cold and calculating nature, had transformed into a more grounded, empathetic leader. She had learned to trust not just her instincts, but the people who had helped her along the way, and Sophie, in particular, had proven herself to be someone worthy of that trust. Sophie's role within the company had also grown. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She had earned her place in the boardroom. She was now an advisor, a crucial part of the team, offering insights that came from her unique perspective. She had become an invaluable asset to Lily's business and, in the process, had gained the respect of others who had once overlooked her. But as the company flourished, Sophie couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had spent so many years hiding in the shadows, remaining invisible, that the spotlight now felt uncomfortable. It was as if she was living in a world she had never truly belonged to. She still remembered the days when she had cleaned the grand halls, never daring to dream that one day she would sit at the same table as the most powerful people in the room. Yet, here she was, a young woman who had defied all expectations, standing beside Lily, the woman who had once looked down on her, but now regarded her as a partner. One evening, as they sat in Lily's office overlooking the city skyline, Sophie turned to her. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she admitted, her voice uncertain. I never imagined this for myself. Lily glanced at her, her expression softening. You've earned every bit of it, Sophie, she said gently. You have more than proven yourself. But I understand how you feel. The world is changing, and so are we. Sophie's eyes lingered on the view before her, the twinkling lights of the city below. She had come so far, but the future still felt uncertain. I used to think that the wealth and power would be enough to make everything feel right, Sophie continued. But now I see that it's not just about that. It's about something more. It's about doing what's right and being true to ourselves. Lily smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached her eyes. You've taught me that, she said. And for that, I'll always be grateful. As they shared that quiet moment, Sophie realized that she had found her place, not just in the business world, but in life. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who had the courage to stand up, to speak the truth, and to change the course of events. And that was more valuable than anything money could buy. The road ahead was still uncertain, and there would be more challenges to face. But Sophie knew that whatever came next, she was ready. She had the strength, the knowledge, and the support of the one person who had once doubted her. Together, they would continue to navigate the twists and turns of life, forging a path of their own, one that was built on trust, respect, and the power of their shared journey. As Sophie settled into her new role within the company, things began to feel more stable. Lily's empire had been restored, but the work was far from over. The road to success was never easy, and both women knew that the foundation they had built was fragile. Sophie, now a trusted advisor, continued to help guide Lily through the complexities of business, offering insights and strategies that had once seemed out of her reach. They faced new challenges, rising competition, shifting markets, and internal struggles, but they tackled each obstacle together, a united front. One morning, as they sat in the office overlooking the city, reviewing financial reports, Lily turned to Sophie with a contemplative look. We've come a long way, Lily said, her voice thoughtful. But sometimes, I wonder if we're doing enough. Sophie paused, looking up from the papers in front of her. What do you mean? She asked, genuinely curious. Lily sighed, pushing the papers aside. It's just, sometimes I wonder if we've lost sight of the bigger picture. We're rebuilding the business, but is that all there is? I've spent so much time chasing power, money, and success that I've forgotten what really matters. Sophie's heart skipped a beat. She had seen Lily's transformation from the cold, business-focused billionaire to someone who was questioning the very foundation of her life. What really matters to you? Sophie asked, her voice quiet. Lily leaned back in her chair, her gaze drifting out the window. I want to make a difference, Sophie, she said, her voice softening. I want to leave a legacy that isn't just about profit, but about helping others, about doing good in the world. I've spent so much time focused on winning that I forgot why I started in the first place. Sophie nodded slowly, feeling a deep sense of understanding. She had seen Lily's ambition, her drive, and her success, but now, she saw a woman who was struggling with the weight of her own achievements. Maybe we can make a difference together, Sophie suggested, her voice filled with quiet resolve. We've built something strong here, but we can use it to help others, to create opportunities, to make a real impact. Lily turned to Sophie, her eyes wide. You're right, she said, her voice gaining strength. We have the power to do something good. Let's use it. The idea of giving back, of using their success to help others, became a driving force for both women. Together, they launched a new initiative aimed at providing education and career opportunities for young people who came from backgrounds similar to Sophie's. Those who had been overlooked, underestimated, and given little chance to succeed. The program offered mentorship, internships, and scholarships, giving these young people the resources they needed to build their futures. It wasn't just a business venture, it was a way to change lives. Sophie felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. She had always wanted to make a difference, but now, she was doing it. She was giving back to the community that had once felt so distant to her, the world that had once seemed out of reach. Lily, too, found herself fulfilled in a way she had never anticipated. The work they did together brought them closer, and they both found joy in the knowledge that they were doing something meaningful. As they watched the first group of young people graduate from their program, Sophie couldn't help but feel proud. She had found her purpose, not just in business, but in helping others. She had changed the course of her own life, but now, she was changing the lives of others, and that made all the difference. The legacy they were building wasn't just about wealth or power. It was about impact, about leaving the world better than they had found it. As the sun set over the city, Sophie looked at Lily, and for the first time, both women felt truly at peace. They had found what really mattered. As Sophie and Lily's initiative gained momentum, they began to see the fruits of their labor in the form of young people whose lives were being transformed. The mentorship program became a beacon of hope for many, providing opportunities for those who had once felt invisible, just as Sophie had. The program not only offered financial support, but also gave these young people the guidance and encouragement they needed to succeed. For Sophie, watching these young individuals thrive was the most rewarding part of their journey. She had never imagined that she would go from being the maid's daughter to a mentor herself, but now, she was helping others break the same barriers she once faced. One evening, after a long day of meetings and program updates, Lily and Sophie sat down in the office, reflecting on their progress. The city lights twinkled below, casting a glow over the skyline. Lily turned to Sophie, her voice filled with a sense of pride. We've done something incredible, Lily said. I never thought I would be part of something like this. Sophie smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. It's not just about us. It's about the people we've helped. It's about making a difference. As they discussed the future of their initiative, they began to realize how much they had both changed. The journey they had undertaken together had transformed not only their business, but also their lives. They had learned the value of giving, the importance of community, and the power of second chances. Their bond had grown stronger than ever, and their shared vision for the future was clearer. They weren't just building a business anymore. They were building a legacy. The next phase of their plan involved expanding the program to reach even more young people across the country. Sophie and Lily began to form partnerships with other organizations, knowing that their combined efforts would have a far greater impact. The goal was to create a network of support for disadvantaged youth, providing them with the resources they needed to succeed in life. As the program expanded, so did Sophie's confidence. She had once been afraid of standing out, of being noticed, but now she was a leader in her own right. She was making decisions, shaping the future of the program, and mentoring the next generation of young leaders. It wasn't easy, and there were challenges along the way, but Sophie had learned that facing those challenges head-on was the only way to make real change. The months flew by, and the program continued to thrive. Sophie and Lily's bond deepened even further as they worked side by side to create lasting change. Sophie no longer saw herself as an outsider in the world of wealth and power. She had earned her place, not through money or status, but through hard work, dedication, and a relentless belief in what was right. One day, as they sat together watching the graduation ceremony for another group of young people who had completed the program, Lily turned to Sophie, her voice filled with emotion. "We've done more than I ever thought possible," she said. "And it's all thanks to you. You've changed my life, Sophie." Sophie smiled, her heart full. "You've changed mine too." In that moment, both women understood that the true measure of success was not in the wealth they had accumulated, but in the lives they had touched, the futures they had helped shape, and the legacy they would leave behind. It was a legacy built not on money, but on compassion, trust, and the unwavering belief that anyone, no matter where they came from, could achieve greatness. As they watched the young graduates step into their futures, Sophie and Lily knew that their journey was far from over. There was still much to be done, many more lives to touch, but they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they had not only changed the course of their own lives, but had created a ripple effect that would continue to transform the world for years to come. As the years passed, Sophie and Lily continued to build on the foundation they had created, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. The mentorship program expanded to include thousands of young people from all walks of life, giving them the opportunities and resources they needed to succeed. The once small initiative had now become a nationwide movement, and its impact was being felt far beyond what either of them could have imagined. Sophie had become a symbol of resilience and hope, a living example that no matter where you came from, you could change your fate. Her story was now being shared across the country, inspiring others to believe in themselves and in the power of community. Lily, too, had transformed. She was no longer just a business mogul. She had become an advocate for social change, using her platform to elevate voices that had been silenced for too long. Together, they had shifted the focus of the company from pure profit to creating lasting impact. They had learned that success was not just about the bottom line. It was about the lives they touched and the difference they made in the world. One afternoon, as they sat in their now bustling headquarters, reviewing the latest achievements of their program, Lily turned to Sophie with a proud smile. "We've done it," Lily said, her voice filled with pride. "We've created something that's changing the world." Sophie smiled back, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We've done it together," she said. "None of this would have been possible without you." Lily nodded, her eyes softening. "I don't think I would have ever gotten here without you, Sophie. You showed me what truly matters." The two women sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their accomplishments sinking in. The road they had traveled together had been long and difficult, but it had been worth it. They had gone from two women on opposite sides of a divide, one a billionaire businesswoman, the other a maid's daughter, to partners in creating real, lasting change. The future was uncertain, but they knew one thing for sure: they had each other, and together, they could accomplish anything. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city below, Sophie looked out the window, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. She had found her purpose, her place in the world, and it was far greater than anything she had ever dreamed. The legacy they had built wasn't just about the money, the power, or the success. It was about the people they had helped, the lives they had changed, and the impact they had made on the world. It was a legacy that would continue long after they were gone, a legacy built on trust, hard work, and the belief that anyone could make a difference. As she turned to Lily, who was now watching the sunset beside her, Sophie knew that their journey was far from over. There were still so many people to help, so many lives to change. But with Lily by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The world was theirs to change, and together, they would keep making it a better place, one person at a time. In this captivating tale, We follow the inspiring journey of a young girl from humble beginnings, navigating her way through a world of wealth and power. This millionaire story is not just about money, but about trust, determination, and the transformative power of change. From the moment Sophie steps into the world of billionaires, she challenges expectations, proving that anyone, regardless of their background, can rise to greatness. The millionaire stories you hear often focus on financial success, but this one dives deeper into the emotional journey of self-discovery, overcoming obstacles, and creating lasting impact. With the help of Lily, a powerful businesswoman, Sophie's story unfolds as they work together to build a legacy that goes beyond profit. Through trials and triumphs, they show that millionaire stories aren't just about acquiring wealth, but about giving back and making a difference in the lives of others. As Sophie and Lily transform their business empire, they also transform themselves, proving that true success is measured by the lives you touch and the difference you make. This millionaire story teaches us that anyone, regardless of their starting point, can achieve greatness with the right mindset and determination. Sophie's journey is a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of finding purpose in life, proving that every millionaire story is unique and can inspire others to achieve their dreams.